Hey, review family, keep it high, keep it tight. It's Shay Morse Review Guy back to bring you another video. And in this one, I'm going to be talking about the album Monument of the End by the band Soreption. So I stayed up until midnight to hear the songs from this album because Sumerian Records is known for releasing the songs Eastern Standard Time for me at midnight, which I was really hyped for. I had to hear it. And Soreption is they're a tech death band. And for Sumerian Records, that's pretty much like, I wouldn't say it's unheard of, but it's very rare because Sumerian Records is known for kind of progressive metalcore bands, djenty type of bands, and overall just kind of a proggy metalcore, deathcore type of veneer. So for a band of this amount of heaviness and brutality to be on Sumerian Records now is pretty awesome. So, previous to this album releasing and the single King of Undisputed Nonsense, which I covered back when it came out, I hadn't heard of Soreption, but they have released two albums prior to this, as well as an EP, and they were formed in 2005, and they were originally signed to the label Unique Leader, but now this is their first release on Sumerian Records. So, right off the bat, something that's kind of like lesser, I would say. It's probably not the thing that's on a lot of people's minds, but the final track on the album that is entitled The Entity features Travis Ryan of Cattle Decapitation, the vegan metal band that I'm like in love with. That's one of my favorite bands. Made an appearance and no one said anything as far as I know, and I follow Cattle Decapitation. Now there's a chance that it was maybe on Soreption's Twitter. I did not know that Travis Ryan was going to be on this album. And we also have Matt Gotchi from Cryptopsy, which was pretty neat. And overall, it's 8 tracks of just pure progressive technical death metal bliss. I was impressed back when I heard King of Undisputed Nonsense, but if I remember correctly, I said that it kind of sounded like a lot of other tech death that had been released. It wasn't necessarily anything that was out of the playing field to me. I had heard bands like it before. And now that I've heard the album in its entirety, and considering the fact that it's on Sumerian Records, probably my favorite death metal album of the year thus far was Augury's album that came out earlier in the year that was entitled Elusive Golden Age. But this Soreption album is probably my second favorite. It's tech death, but it's very well produced tech death. And if you know anything about Sumerian Records, you know that they have some very polished mixing on their bands. It's very rare for a Sumerian Records album to be produced faulty. All of their albums sound almost kind of like mechanical, like not in a bad way, but just very precisely put in place. Very good mixing, very high quality mixing. And overall, this is a pretty damn good album. If you go into it, you're going to expect the normal tech death riffage, the very heavy guttural vocals. You're going to get some shrieks now and again, and they're going to be semi-longer songs. They're not like Between the Buried and Me length type of songs, but they're long enough to where you're going to get a nice, healthy serving of each song. I think that the lead vocalist does a great job over these instrumentals. For a tech death band, he does a very great job of kind of just roaring over these instrumentals. The instrumentals on all of these tracks are very polished, very well put together, and that's not even talking about the mixing. That's just saying that the proficiency of the instruments are very noticeable and very great, and I have to commend that. My favorite track on the album, probably The Entity, just because I love Travis Ryan so much, and he came through with almost these clean vocals that are kind of like the clean vocals that he did on Monolith of Inhumanity and the Anthropocene Extinction, if you're familiar with either of those albums, those kind of higher shrieky type vocals. But other than that, I mean, it was strange to hear him, and I wasn't expecting it because on Sumerian Records, the actual video, it's just entitled The Entity. Now, they may change that later, but it didn't say featuring Travis Ryan or anything, so hopefully we get some new Cattle Decapitation soon. Would love to cover that. But overall, I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10. It was a very good tech death album. But it did have shortcomings in terms of the fact that, yeah, it sounds like tech death. And I feel at this point, with the whole technicality and progressive sound, despite those two being like my favorite types of bands and albums, I think that a lot of times these bands will fall into some kind of pitfalls that a lot of these bands struggle with. But this is in no way putting down Soreption, because this is a very well polished, very well put together album. And for them being on Sumerian Records now, I'm very excited to see that Sumerian Records is kind of expanding their horizons, expanding the type of bands that they have under their label. And I'm excited to see what happens in the future with this band and the label, to see if maybe they expand more and try to bring in more bands into the fold. So anyways, guys, I'll post Sumerian Records YouTube page in the description below if you want to go look through the Soreption songs. They also released a video alongside it. It was the Anti-Present. Haven't watched that yet because I was just listening to the album in its entirety with headphones on, but I should watch the video. But anyways, guys, my name is Jay Morris, a review guy. Tell me what you thought of this album in the comment section below, and I'll shout your channel out. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and I'll talk to you next time. But until then, I'm signing off saying farewell.